You never expect betrayal to come from your own child. I always thought the hardest part of growing old would be the aches in my knees or the way my memory sometimes slips, not the sting of realizing your own daughter sees your life's treasures as nothing more than things to be sold. But that's exactly what happened to me, and the story of how I found out and what I did next changed everything between us. Before I go on, I want to ask you, where are you from? I love hearing from women all over, from small towns and big cities, from every corner of the country. It reminds me that we're all connected, that our stories matter. So if you're listening, please comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like and subscribe. It means more to me than you know. Back to that day, it started like any other, with the sun streaming through the kitchen window and the smell of coffee filling the house. My daughter, Lisa, had come over to help me clean out the attic. She'd been pushing me for months to downsize, to get rid of clutter, as she called it. I knew she meant well, at least I thought she did. But I also knew she had her eye on a new car, and money had been tight since her divorce. We spent the morning sorting through boxes, laughing over old photos and letters, reminiscing about family vacations and birthday parties. But every so often, I'd catch Lisa glancing at certain items with a look I couldn't quite place, something between calculation and impatience. She was especially interested in the old china set from my grandmother, the silver candlesticks from my wedding, and the carved wooden clock that had belonged to my great-uncle. "Mom, do you really need all this?" she asked, holding up a delicate porcelain teacup. "You never use it. Wouldn't it be better to let someone else enjoy it?" I smiled, taking the cup from her hands. "Some things aren't meant to be used every day, Lisa. They're meant to be remembered." She rolled her eyes, but let it go. We finished the attic, and I thought that was the end of it. But a week later, I got a call from my friend Mabel. "Evelyn, I saw your china set listed online. Someone's selling it on Marketplace. The photos are from your kitchen." My heart dropped. I thanked Mabel and hung up, my hands shaking. I went straight to my computer and found the listing. There it was, my grandmother's china, my wedding candlesticks, even the old clock. The seller's name was L. Carter. Lisa. I felt a wave of anger and disbelief. I called Lisa, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lisa, why are you selling my things online?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "Mom, you never use them. You have so much stuff, and you don't need it all. I thought I could help you get rid of some things and make a little money. I was going to tell you." I clenched the phone, my voice trembling. "You were going to tell me after you sold them?" "These aren't just things, Lisa. They're my memories. They're our family's history." She got defensive. "You're being dramatic, Mom. It's just stuff. You can't take it with you." I hung up before I said something I'd regret. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty teacup, feeling more alone than I had in years. I thought about all the times I told Lisa the stories behind each piece. The Christmas dinners, the anniversaries, the quiet evenings when Harold and I would wind the old clock and listen to it tick in the silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching each item Lisa had tried to sell, remembering the hands that had held them before me. I realized that Lisa didn't understand their value, because I'd never truly told her. I'd shared the stories, but I'd never explained what these things meant to me, to our family, to the generations that came before. The next morning, I called Lisa and asked her to come over. She sounded reluctant, but she agreed. When she arrived, I had the china set, the candlesticks, and the clock laid out on the dining room table. I sat her down and told her the story of each piece, how the china had survived 2 world wars, how the candlesticks had been a wedding gift from my parents, how the clock had been carved by hand by a great-uncle who'd come to America with nothing but hope. Lisa listened, at first impatient, then slowly, her expression softened. I saw something shift in her eyes, a glimmer of understanding, maybe even regret. "Mom, I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't realize." I just thought, I don't know what I thought. I reached across the table and took her hand. These things aren't just valuable because they're old or rare. They're valuable because they're part of who we are. They're the stories we pass down, the memories we keep alive. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I won't sell anything, Mom, I promise. Lisa stayed for lunch that day, and for the first time in a long while, there was a quiet between us that felt more like healing than distance. I made her favorite chicken salad and set the table with the very china she tried to sell. As we ate, I told her about my own mother, how she'd saved every penny to buy that set piece by piece, how she'd let me use it for my birthday tea parties when I was a little girl. I told her about the time my father chipped a saucer and tried to glue it back together before my mother noticed, and how we all laughed about it for years. Lisa listened, really listened, and I could see her remembering her own childhood, Christmases around that table, the way her father would light the candlesticks and tell us stories about his parents, the way the clock would chime at midnight every New Year's Eve. I realized that, for all her talk about just stuff, she was as much a part of these memories as I was. After lunch, we went up to the attic together. I showed her the old trunk where I kept letters from her grandparents, her father's baby shoes, and the quilt my grandmother had sewn by hand. We sat on the floor, sifting through the past, and I watched as Lisa's face softened with each new discovery. Mom, I'm sorry, she said again, her voice thick with emotion. I was so focused on what I thought we needed, I forgot what we already had. I hugged her, feeling the years of tension melt away. We all forget sometimes. That's why we need to remember together. That evening, after Lisa left, I sat in the living room, surrounded by the things that had once felt like a burden to her. I realized that their true value wasn't in their age or rarity, but in the way they connected us, to each other, to our past, to the people we loved and lost. The next day, Lisa called and asked if she could bring Ben and Lily over to hear the stories behind the antique. I want them to know where they come from, Mom. I want them to understand. When they arrived, I made hot chocolate and set out cookies on the old silver tray. I showed the children the china, the candlesticks, the clock, and told them the stories behind each one. Ben was fascinated by the clock's gears and asked if he could help me wind it. Lily wanted to know if she could use the china for her next birthday tea party, just like I had when I was her age. As I watched them, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. I realized that the real value of these things wasn't in what they were worth, but in the memories they held and the stories they inspired. Lisa started coming over more often, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to help me sort through old boxes. We made a list of the family heirlooms and wrote down the stories behind each one. She promised to keep the list safe, to pass it on to Ben and Lily when the time was right. One afternoon, as we were sorting through a box of old photographs, Lisa found a letter from my grandmother. In it, she wrote about the importance of family, of holding on to the things that matter, of remembering where you come from. Lisa read the letter aloud, her voice trembling. I get it now, Mom. I really do. I smiled, feeling tears in my eyes. I'm glad, sweetheart. That's all I ever wanted. Paragraph break. The weeks passed, and the house felt warmer, fuller. Lisa and I started a new tradition. Sunday dinners with the good china, the candlesticks lit, and the clock chiming in the background. Ben and Lily helped set the table, and we took turns telling stories about the people who had come before us. Paragraph break. One Sunday, Lisa brought over a small box. Inside was a necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. I want you to have this, Mom. I know how much it meant to her, and to you. Paragraph break. I hugged her, overwhelmed by the gesture. Thank you, Lisa. I'll treasure it always. Paragraph break. That night, as I sat by the window, the necklace in my hand, I realized that the true value of our family's treasures wasn't in their price, but in the love and memories they carried. I knew there would still be hard days, still be moments of misunderstanding, but I also knew that we were building something lasting, one story, one memory, one Sunday dinner at a time. Paragraph break. As autumn settled in, the air grew crisp, and the leaves painted the yard in gold and red. Lisa and I spent more time together than we had in years. She started asking questions about her grandparents, about my childhood, about the stories behind every little thing in the house. I realized she was searching for something, maybe forgiveness, maybe connection, maybe just a sense of belonging that she'd lost in the chaos of her own life. Paragraph break. One afternoon, we sat together in the living room, sorting through a box of old postcards. Each one was a window into another time, a note from my father during the war, a birthday card from my mother, a postcard from Paris that Harold had sent me on our anniversary trip. Lisa read each one aloud, her voice soft and full of wonder. Paragraph break. Mom. I never knew you and Dad went to Paris, she said, looking up at me with a smile. Paragraph break. I laughed, remembering the trip. We saved for years. It was our dream. We ate baguettes by the Seine and danced under the Eiffel Tower. Your father was hopeless at French, but he tried so hard. Lisa grinned. I wish I'd known him like that. I squeezed her hand. You knew him in your own way. He loved you so much, Lisa. He was so proud of you. We spent the rest of the afternoon making a scrapbook, gluing in the postcards, and writing little notes about each memory. Ben and Lily joined us, asking questions and adding their own drawings. The house was filled with laughter, the kind that echoes long after the moment has passed. That evening, after the children had gone to bed, Lisa and I sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. She was quiet for a long time, then finally spoke. Mom, I'm sorry for trying to sell your things. I was so caught up in my own problems, I forgot what really matters. I put my arm around her. We all make mistakes, Lisa. What matters is that we learn from them, and that we forgive each other. She nodded, tears in her eyes. Thank you for forgiving me, and for teaching me what's important. The next day, Lisa surprised me by bringing over a box of her own things, old toys, school projects, even her first diary. I want to start my own tradition, she said. I want Ben and Lily to know where they come from, too. We spent the weekend organizing her box, adding it to the growing collection of family treasures. I realized that, for the first time, Lisa understood the real value of what we'd almost lost. Not just the antiques, but the stories, the memories, the love that held us all together. The photo club at the senior center heard about our project and invited us to share our story. Lisa and I stood in front of a room full of women, telling them about the day I found my antiques for sale online, about the argument that followed, about the healing that came from sharing our memories. The women nodded, some wiping away tears, others smiling in recognition. After the meeting, a woman named Margaret approached us. Thank you for sharing your story. My daughter and I haven't spoken in years. Maybe it's time I reached out. Lisa hugged her, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude. I realized that our story wasn't just about us. It was about every family that's ever struggled to hold on to what matters. As the weeks passed, Lisa and I continued our Sunday dinners, our scrapbooking, our storytelling. The house felt alive again, full of warmth and hope. I knew there would still be challenges, still be moments of misunderstanding, but I also knew that we were building something lasting, one memory, one story, one act of forgiveness at a time. Winter crept in quietly, frosting the windows and blanketing the garden in white. The house felt cozier than ever, filled with the smell of cinnamon and the sound of laughter. Lisa and I spent our evenings by the fire, sipping tea and working on our family scrapbook. Ben and Lily would curl up beside us, listening to stories about their great-grandparents, about the old days before cell phones and the internet, about the adventures and mishaps that made our family what it is. One snowy afternoon, Lisa brought over a box of ornaments from her attic. I thought we could decorate the tree together, like we used to, she said, her eyes hopeful. We unpacked each ornament, remembering the story behind it. The angel Ben made in kindergarten, the glass ball from our first Christmas in this house, the wooden reindeer Harold carved by hand. As we hung each one, I felt the years slip away, replaced by a sense of belonging and peace. That evening, as we sat by the tree, Lisa turned to me. "Mom, I've been thinking about what you said, about the real value of things. I want to make sure Ben and Lily understand too. I want them to know that family is more important than money, that memories are worth more than anything you can buy." I smiled, my heart full. "They'll learn, Lisa. You're teaching them every day, just by being here." The next week, the senior center hosted a holiday potluck. I brought my grandmother's apple pie, and Lisa brought her famous gingerbread cookies. We shared our story with the group, and other women began to open up about their own family treasures. The quilt that survived a house fire, the locket passed down through generations, the recipe book filled with handwritten notes. We laughed, we cried, and we celebrated the ties that bound us all together. After the potluck, Margaret pulled me aside. "Evelyn, you've inspired me. I called my daughter. We're having dinner next week. I don't know what will happen, but I want to try." I hugged her, feeling a deep sense of hope. "That's all any of us can do, Margaret. Just try." At home, Lisa and I started a new tradition, writing letters to Ben and Lily, sharing stories and advice for the future. We tucked the letters into the scrapbook, along with photos and little mementos. I realized that, for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what would happen to my antiques, my memories, my legacy. I knew they were in good hands. One evening, as the snow fell softly outside, Lisa and I sat by the fire, talking about the future. "Mom, I want you to know that you'll always have a place here. This is your home too." I squeezed her hand, tears in my eyes. "Thank you, Lisa. That means more to me than you'll ever know." As the holidays approached, the house filled with friends and family. We hosted a Christmas Eve dinner, inviting neighbors, friends from the senior center, and anyone who needed a place to belong. The table was crowded, the food plentiful, and the laughter endless. I looked around at the faces I loved, at the home we'd rebuilt together, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the journey we'd taken. I realized that the real value of my antiques wasn't in their price, but in the way they brought us together, the way they helped us heal, the way they reminded us of who we are. The new year brought a sense of renewal and hope. Lisa and I made resolutions together. Hers was to spend more time with the kids. Mine was to write down as many family stories as I could remember. We started a memory jar in the kitchen, where anyone could drop in a note about something funny, touching, or important that happened that week. By the end of January, the jar was already half full, and reading the notes became a Sunday dinner tradition. Ben and Lily loved it. They wrote about their first snowman of the year, about the time Ben helped a new student at school, about Lily's solo in the school choir. Lisa wrote about her promotion at work, and I wrote about the day I taught Ben how to make my mother's chicken soup. Each note was a tiny treasure, a reminder that the best moments in life are often the simplest. The Senior Center invited me to lead a new workshop, this time on preserving family history. I taught women how to organize their photos, how to record oral histories, how to create scrapbooks and memory jars of their own. The room was always full, and the stories that emerged were beautiful and heartbreaking and full of wisdom. I realized that, in helping others preserve their memories, I was also preserving my own. Lisa and I continued our furniture project, refinishing an old hope chest that had belonged to my grandmother. We lined it with lavender and filled it with letters, photos, and keepsakes for Ben and Lily. "One day, this will be theirs," I told Lisa, "and they'll know exactly where they come from." One afternoon, Lisa came home from work looking troubled. She sat at the kitchen table, twisting her wedding ring. "Mom, I got an offer on the house today. A good one. Mark and I talked about it, and, for a moment, I thought about saying yes. But then I remembered everything we've built here. I remembered what you said about value. I told the realtor no." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Thank you, Lisa. This house is more than just walls and a roof. It's our story." She smiled, relief in her eyes. "I know. I just needed to hear it from you." As spring approached, the garden began to wake up. Ben and Lily helped me plant seeds, and we talked about what we wanted to grow. Sunflowers for Lily, tomatoes for Ben, and a new rose bush in memory of Harold. The house was filled with the promise of new beginnings, and I felt a deep sense of peace. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lisa turned to me. "Mom, I'm glad you fought for your antiques. I'm glad you fought for us. You taught me that some things are worth holding on to." I hugged her, my heart full. "And you taught me that forgiveness is just as important as strength." That night, as I wrote in my journal, I realized that the journey we'd taken was about so much more than antiques. It was about love, forgiveness, and the courage to start over. It was about the power of stories to heal, to connect, to remind us of who we are. Spring blossomed in full, and with it came a sense of celebration. The garden was alive with color, and the house was filled with the sound of children's laughter and the smell of fresh bread. Lisa and I hosted a family reunion, inviting cousins, aunts, uncles, and friends from near and far. We set up tables in the backyard, decorated with wildflowers and old family photos, and everyone brought a dish to share. During the reunion, Ben and Lily gave a little tour of the house, proudly showing off the antique and telling the stories behind each one. "This clock belonged to my great-great-uncle," Ben explained to a cousin. "And this china set survived 2 world wars," Lily added, her eyes shining. I watched them, my heart swelling with pride. They understood the value of these things, not just as objects, but as pieces of our family story. After dinner, we gathered around the fire pit, roasting marshmallows and sharing memories. Lisa stood up and thanked everyone for coming. "I want to thank my mom," she said, her voice steady. "She taught me that family is about more than just blood. It's about the stories we share, the memories we make, and the love we hold on to, even when it's hard." The family applauded, and I felt tears prick my eyes. I realized that for the first time in a long time, I felt truly seen, not just as a mother or a grandmother, but as a woman with her own story, her own strength, her own worth. The next day, Lisa and I sat on the porch sipping lemonade and watching the children play. She turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "Mom, I've been thinking about everything we've been through. I know I hurt you when I tried to sell your antiques. I was lost and I thought money would fix everything. But you showed me that what really matters can't be bought or sold." I squeezed her hand. "We all lose our way sometimes, Lisa. What matters is that we find our way back." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for forgiving me, and for teaching me what it means to be strong." As the weeks passed, the house continued to fill with life. Ben and Lily invited friends over for sleepovers. Lisa started a book club with her neighbors, and I began writing a memoir, hoping to capture the stories and lessons I wanted to pass down. The senior center invited me to speak at their annual luncheon, and I shared our story about antiques, forgiveness, and the power of family, with a room full of women who nodded in understanding. One afternoon, as I was working in the garden, Ben came running up to me, holding a small box. "Grandma, look what I found in the attic." Inside was a locket I hadn't seen in years, engraved with my initials. I opened it and found a tiny photo of Harold and me on our wedding day. I hugged Ben, feeling the past and present come together in a single, perfect moment. That night, as I sat by the window, the locket in my hand, I thought about the journey we'd taken. I realized that the true value of our family's treasures wasn't in their price, but in the way they brought us together, the way they helped us heal, the way they reminded us of who we are. As summer approached, I felt a deep sense of peace. I knew there would still be challenges, still be moments of misunderstanding, but I also knew that we were building something lasting, one memory, one story, one act of forgiveness at a time. As summer settled in, the house felt more alive than ever. The garden was in full bloom, and the kitchen was always busy with the grandchildren, helping me bake pies or shell peas for dinner. Lisa and I had found a new rhythm, one built on trust, forgiveness, and a shared sense of purpose. We spent our evenings on the porch, watching fireflies and talking about the future, about the kind of legacy we wanted to leave for Ben and Lily. One evening, after a long day of gardening and laughter, Lisa brought out the family scrapbook. We sat together, flipping through the pages, adding new photos and stories. Ben and Lily joined us, eager to hear about the time their mother got stuck in the apple tree, or the summer their grandfather built a tree house with nothing but a hammer and a stubborn streak. Each story brought us closer, weaving a tapestry of memories that would last long after the antiques themselves had faded. The Senior Center's annual luncheon arrived, and I stood before a room full of women, sharing our story. I spoke about the pain of feeling unwanted, the shock of discovering my daughter's plan to sell my treasures, and the journey we'd taken to forgiveness and understanding. I told them about the true value of family, the way it's measured not in things, but in love, in memories, in the courage to hold on, and the grace to let go. After my speech, women lined up to thank me, to share their own stories of loss and reconciliation, of family heirlooms saved or lost, of lessons learned the hard way. I realized that our story was not unique, but universal, a reminder that every family has its struggles, and every heart has the capacity to heal. At home, Lisa and I started a new project, recording video interviews with family members, capturing their stories in their own words. We laughed as Ben tried to interview Lily, who kept making silly faces at the camera. And we cried as we listened to Mark talk about his memories of Harold. The project brought us even closer, and I knew that one day, Ben and Lily would treasure these recordings as much as I treasured the old letters and photos. As the summer drew to a close, we hosted one last family dinner in the backyard. The table was set with the good china, the candlesticks gleamed in the twilight, and the clock chimed in the background. Friends and neighbors joined us, and the air was filled with music, laughter, and the smell of fresh bread. After dinner, Lisa stood up and raised her glass. To my mother, who taught me that the real value of family isn't in what we own, but in what we share. Thank you for fighting for us, for forgiving us, and for reminding us that love is the greatest treasure of all. I hugged her, my heart overflowing with gratitude. Thank you, Lisa, for coming back to me, for helping me remember what matters. That night, as I sat on the porch, the locket around my neck and the sound of laughter drifting through the open window, I realized that I was exactly where I was meant to be. The antiques, the stories, the memories, they were all part of a legacy that would live on, not just in things, but in the hearts of the people I loved. And as the stars came out, I whispered a quiet thank you, for forgiveness, for family, for the chance to begin again, no matter how many times life tries to make you let go.